Yeah, that's a really important difference to understand with Lambda operators and passing two parameters. So the select method is an overloaded method. What I mean by that is there are two parameters available that you can pass into this Lambda operator. One, of course, is the object itself. So in this instance, you can see key comes from the p pool. So that's one of the parameters you can pass. And you can see the syntax is quite simple. But if you also want to pass in the index, so because this is a list and you want to pass in at which position, for example, James, Victoria, Mark, or Taylor are at, then you need another parameter. But as you can see, the problem with this one is it's only passing in the individual person over here. So for example, it'll just pass in James, but it won't pass in necessarily in which position within the list James sits. So the select method has an overloaded method. So if we go here, you can see that this is how you would do it, which is you're passing it a person as before, and then you're also passing an index. This is separated by a comma, and you can see here that we have these two parentheses around this as well. And then the Lambda operator appears. So you can see the difference here because you're only passing in a single object. You do not need any parentheses or commas. You just then add in your Lambda operator. But if you want to pass in two arguments or parameters, then what you need to do is use a comma over here and also the parentheses. And then within here, you can see you can use the index and also the p object. You can also do the same. So this was the inline function as you saw. So we've got the inline function. But what you can do is when you have a situation where you're actually calling a standalone function like debug person over here, which is again as part of the select method, and this is the debug person, and you can see it can only take the minute a single object of a person. You don't even have to specify a parameter here for this function to work. So you don't have to specify that you're passing in a p person object. So how that would work here is in the same method. So again, you can see the two parentheses here, and you can see we are passing in p and I, and then you can see when we call the debug function, we actually then specify p and I over here, and then these get passed over here because that's a function's signature over here, and then you can use the index and also the p object. So I just wanted to demonstrate to you that you can all pass in a single object like the p, and it gets used automatically within here, so you don't even have to specify it. And similar in fashion, if you're doing inline, you just declare p and then the Lambda operator. But while if you want to pass in multiple parameters, you must use this style syntax over here and then call the function like this. Or if you're doing inline, then of course you've got your Lambda operator here, but then you've got your parentheses here, and then you're passing in the p and also the index. Now notice here I've coded index here, but you can code it wherever you want. And you can see here in this instance I have actually coded I, and it doesn't really matter because the C# compiler is clever enough to detect that p actually refers to the person and index is the second parameter here because that's what the signature of the method is. So the second argument or parameter here is always the index. So it doesn't really matter what you call it, it will automatically be an integer index value. That's why we have declared int here.